yesterday we tried to hook up with the Hall of Famer Craig Way, and he was he was too busy flying to the land of milk and corn and honey, I suppose. But we are now pork. We're now happy to be joined by the Hall of Famer. It is Craig Way. Craig, how is lovely Ames, Iowa, I presume, but maybe Des Moines?
He's in Ankeny.
Ankeny?
Yes.
Ankeny, fashionable Ankeny, which is located just north and just north of Des Moines on your way to Ames. But the team stayed in Ankeny last night. So, yes, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful Iowa morning here, and you're right, about the addition of pork to that menu. As I having breakfast this morning, and everything was like, if you wanted an omelet, it'd be like whatever, eggs, cheese, and Iowa pork sausage. Cheese, and Iowa ham and all that. So
you're lucky it doesn't get served with a side of sweet corn.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, Quan Cosby, our sideline reporter, had at the barbecue place we went to yesterday, had sweet corn as a side item and really enjoyed that. So yes, the menu here in America's heartland is always appetizing.
Yes.
Oh, geez, this is going to get bad because I don't know if you know this, Craig, but Max is an Iowa State guy, and so this could get very dicey here because he might just start injecting his red and yellow.
Hey, I'm done. This is between you two now.
Okay,
that's all. I gotta have my little shout out to my original home state.
We'll see.
Yeah,
so, Craig, I want to ask you, now that you've had a chance to maybe chew on it, see how it, kind of take it all as a whole. You've had a little bit of time to digest. When you look back at Week 4 of Texas high school football season, who impressed you the most? Who's the team that's moving the needle for you coming out of Week 4?
It's funny when you said all that chewing and digesting. I was thinking about breakfast at the Yankee Diner here. But,
bad transition.
Yeah. The teams, I guess, probably. The ones that if I were to look at it by classification, I would say probably the ones that have impressed me most at this point are, and it'd be really close in 2AD1, but Martin Mason probably, even more with that loss because it was to a really good 3A team in Lexington. That's probably caught my attention the most in 2AD1. 2AD2. I would say, at least to this early portion, I'd say Munster. I really like what the Hornets have done at this point. I think they've been very impressive and haven't really been challenged that much. That's probably the team that's, as you said, moved the needle for me a little bit more than the others. 381 is really, really close for me because I probably Wall in the fact that their climb, I think, has been the most significant, although we'll find out more about Hallettsville certainly tomorrow night. And then what did I say last week, Tap? I think I said that if we had Pete Gillen talking about 3A Division II, he would be saying Gunner is Gunner, Duke is Duke, that kind of thing, because they just haven't let up. They've been really, really good in what they've done. 481, I've been, and you have as well, been talking quite a bit about Argyle, and I Max and I got to see him up close and personal last week, and I know Max was impressed with him. I certainly was impressed with him as well. 482, I think Cuero probably comes to mind, and especially given the things that they've gone through, like the other communities down there, and that's probably been as impressive as anything. 5A is Vandal. I think they're the best team in the state in 5A, at least right now. I mean, I vote on the AP poll, and they're number 2 on the AP poll. They're number 1 on my ballot. I just think that they're what they've shown so far, I think, is the best. And probably in 6A, even though you can't punish Allen for what they've done, they've taken care of the business. The most impressive team to me is the one we saw 4 weeks ago, and that's Judson. In terms of what they've done to this point. So those are the ones who probably stood out the most.
I want to ask you a little bit about maybe we may be seeing, especially in 6A and 5A, I think, I think we're seeing some of the perennial powers kind of falter a little bit. You know, we see Cedar Hill is off to a bit of a slow start. Cibolo Steel is
And
off
it may get slower this week.
exactly right. Cibolo Steel also off to a slow start, and it may get slower this week. I want to ask you that in your experience, since you're a guy who's covered this sport for forever, basically.
You continue to remind me of that.
Yes, exactly.
The words forever
That's
and
fine.
decades and all that kind of stuff. All those very flattering terms.
Sure,
yes.
of course.
That mean years.
I want to ask you. I want to ask you, with these kind of teams that the Blue Bloods that are faltering, do you think that this could be an opportunity for some newcomers, some teams in the 6A and 5A ranks that maybe we haven't seen, to maybe step up and step into that statewide conversation?
I do. I do, and I completely agree with you. Although the only caveat that I will add to it is the teams that I think might be best positioned to move past some of those Blue Bloods are not necessarily brand new teams in terms of ones that we would just say these are brand new faces. They're ones that have been there before, but maybe haven't been quite there in the past. The one that comes to mind, obviously, is Smith and Valley.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, here's a program that wasn't necessarily counted on to be a state contender. Let me put it in those terms at the start of the year. And all they've been is very, very impressive so far. We've seen what Larry Hill has done, to use the word decades. We've seen what he has done for years and years and years there, and all of a sudden you look up and, hey, there's a team that's really good and moving up the charts very quickly. I know there's some newbies in there. I want to see a little more out of Saxe.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see Midway is a team that at a lower classification excelled clearly, and the last time Midway was in a state championship game, they were trying to defend Baker Mayfield. So let's see, how they are at 6A so far. All of the reports have been good. Everything on Midway has been very, very impressive. The returns on them as well. Of the ones, like say in 6A, I would say yes to your question, although there are some familiar names, if not the Blue Bloods of the Blue Bloods, waiting in the shadows for their opportunity to leap right back into the spotlight.
We're talking to the Hall of Famer Craig Way here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation. Hashtag TF Today. All right, let's take the other side of that coin. Which teams are off to a slow start that you're sticking by? Which teams are off to who maybe have an ugly record that you're not hitting the panic button yet on?
The easy answer on that is Cameron Yo, I think. And it doesn't get too much uglier than 1 in 3 through 4 weeks. But some of that is, and we've talked about this, some of that is scheduling because we're learning more about Gatesville as time goes forward. So some of it is, as we've seen in the past, teams that for whatever reason, and these are teams that are really, really good, get off to sluggish starts either because there might be a little nagging injury that we don't know about, that coaches, kind of keep close to the vest. Then you find out 8-9 weeks later, yeah, he had a bad thumb for a while. And it's like, that explains it. Okay. and I've come across that countless times in the past. There'll be some of that. Some of it is just, especially the smaller classifications, if they have quite a bit of turnover, who steps into those positions. And I'm not necessarily talking about skill positions because they can always find some talented enough skill positions. It's those trench positions. If they're having trouble running the football early in the season, if they're having trouble stopping the run early in the season, because, at the smaller levels, those positions, those interior line positions are more vital, perhaps I would submit to you, than at the higher classifications by sheer numbers. And it's hard to replace a standout offensive lineman, or in those cases, offensive and defensive lineman, because they're going to be playing both ways. And it's hard to replace a kid like that who gets injured. So then you're plugging a kid in. He might be 175 pounds, and he hadn't been through those wars yet. It hadn't quite learned all the techniques and the shortcuts and some of the things that help him get there. So those are the things we normally find out about these kinds of teams that started off sluggishly, and then all of a sudden, okay, here they are. Now it makes more sense.
I want to ask you now a little bit about this week. Let's move on to week 5. There's, I think it's funny. There's a lot of games. This was supposed to be a really big week DeSoto and Allen and Cedar Hill and Judd, or I'm sorry, DeSoto and Cedar Hill. Man, this is why I can't do a show early. Between DeSoto, Cedar Hill, as well as Steele and Judson, those two games have kind of lost a little bit of luster, I think, because of the slow starts from Cedar Hill and Steele. I want to ask you, put you on the spot. You can only pay attention to one game this weekend in the high school ranks. What's the game that you're going to be locked into?
Crawford de Leon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, you're talking about the upper classification.
or anything. Hey, listen, that's a great pick, and I think a game that not enough people are paying attention to. I think I'm the only one in the office who likes De Leon in this game. But
you're the riverboat gambler.
But
you're going
I
with the
think
new blood.
I love this Crawford De Leon game.
If I'm in the office with you, we're the two riverboat gamblers. I like the Bearcats in that. But now, having said that, I won't be surprised if Crawford handles their business and wins the football game. That's going to be one of the better games. I'm clearly watching that one. And Hallettsville Yoakum for what it is over the years. And that's why I said we're going to find out a little more about Hallettsville this week. It might not necessarily get the full answer on that. And they've had a very solid program up the past few years. So that those are probably the ones that those two that stand out to me. I'm kind of curious about Rockwall and Heath a little bit. It should be a good matchup to see that in the Metroplex and 2-5A programs, and I'm intrigued by that matchup. So those are the ones really that come to mind as much as any other for me. And this is a week that I think that the lower classifications kind of by sheer matchup alone may stand a little bit apart from the higher classifications from 5A and 6A.
We're talking with Craig Way, the Hall of Famer here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation, #TF Today. And, of course, Craig, we can't let you go without asking you about what you're doing tonight. You'll be at Jack Trice Stadium for Iowa State and Texas. Texas has traditionally had their way with Iowa State, although the last time they were in Ames, they took a 24-0 loss back to Austin with them. I'm going to ask you about the keys to the game here for Texas. They enter the game, I think, as a small but defined favorite in this game. As far as what needs to happen for them to win this game, what do you think are maybe number 1 and 2 things that they have to do?
Well, defensively, they're going to play one of the more sound offensive teams they've seen this year. And you say, wait a minute, they played USC. Yeah, they played USC. They did. But USC also had mistakes in the game. The defense played very well. Iowa State makes very few mistakes. And they have 2 turnovers, I think, this season. They do that. They have a solid running back, and David Montgomery and Mike Warren as a compliment there. Jacob Park, a talented quarterback, the former Georgia Bulldog there. And they clearly have one of the best wide receivers in the country in Alan Lazard. There's no doubt about it. He's a big target, rangy, fast, and they've seen him in the past. And 2 years ago when they lost up here, he did a lot of damage to them. So that's on the offensive side. The corners for Texas, the secondary for Texas, have to do a good job on Lazard and the receivers, and they've got to get some pass rush in on Park. Offensively, everybody's waiting to see what happens with the running game. And my answer to that is the word diversification, because with the losses they've sustained on the offensive front, and they've basically lost their 3 best blockers due to injury in 2 offensive linemen in Connor Williams and Elijah Rodriguez and the tight end Andrew Beck. So that really does affect your running game. And for those who say, well, I just need to turn the hand the ball to Chris Warren more, okay? But if you're not getting the push up front, and Tim Beck at one point described it as we're getting in the way up front, but we're not getting enough push up front, that makes it difficult. So what we've heard Tom Herman talk about is we've got to do a few things to diversify what we're doing, not necessarily open it up and go air raid or anything like that, but things that can enable some holes to be there for the running game to become more effective. That's what I'm looking to see as an important element tonight.
I'm also going to try to get you in trouble as we let you go. Do you like the city of Ames?
Yes, I actually do.
Okay.
Now, I deal with it in small doses, but yes,
Yeah. That's the way to do it.
I do like it. It's a good college town.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good college town. Now, at my age, I'm not spending a lot of time in college towns other than to call college games. I mean, you're not going to see me down at the local campus watering hole. I'm not also going Will Ferrell old school. My meatloaf! I'm not doing that. But college towns, yeah, it's a nice college town. I like it.
Okay. He'll be on the call tonight there in the Texas radio call there, the IMG Sports Network. He is the great Craig Way. Follow him on Twitter at CraigWay1. Craig, have a great call, and I will see you tomorrow night, buddy.
Looking forward to it. Thanks.